Welcome back, everybody, to Book versus the show where we ask that age-old question: is the book really was better than the movie? Well, after last week's far more kid-centric Book versus on the Treasure Island story, I decided to whiplash back in the adult sphere. So in that case, let's take a look at the unquestionable, absolutely beloved cult classic Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, starring ones such as Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. I mean, what can I say about this thing? Man, what a trip. The 1998 film exploring drug use, following Mr. Duke's travels through said city of sin, gaining the hijinks and pushing the human's body to take and react to all sorts of crazy narcotics and whatnot, while still giving an interesting glimpse into the world of the day. So of course this movie is based off the book of the same name written by Hunter Thompson back in 1971, same year the movie takes place in. And as far as I know, fun little tidbit, Mr. Thompson never actually did directly say if this thing actually was a true story or not. So most were introduced to this story via the movie, not the book, right? So if that is the case, then does the movie's superb acting and great use of camera work and whatnot trump the original writing? Or does the original manuscript of it still reign supreme? Well, there's only one way to find out then, and that's... So this actually is a bit of a longer movie, clocking in at just under 2 hours. The book itself is not actually that long in the grand scheme of things, but as usual, the movie can't fit everything in from the book. Sort of. So the movie is well known for Duke just constantly monologuing all the way through, right?
Suddenly, there was a terrible roar all around us, and the sky was full of what looked like huge bats.
Book is written exclusively 100% from a first person's perspective from Duke. You only know what he's thinking and saying or hearing from other people. So them choosing to do like a monologuing narration style of Duke explaining everything that's going on is, as far as I'm concerned, not only the right way, but the only way they could have possibly have actually done this book any degree of justice. And the movie did take advantage of this. So in some scenes, such as in the book, when Duke is getting the initial phone call in order to go to Las Vegas, something that would take like a few pages in the book, they can be condensed down to 1 or 2 minutes, thanks to the visual media about him just simply being able to say everything that goes on in the phone call. It works for pretty much the entire film. There were a few scenes that they did just completely take out, such as how they got the money to go to Vegas in the first place. I wish they would add in. But in the movie's defense, they put as much into this thing as they possibly could without it feeling like really rushed or just getting complicated and messy. One aspect, though, that they did kind of skimp on, they did, but they didn't, all right? And that was how, at the end of the day, Duke was supposed to be a journalist. Yes, I know they did bring it up periodically through the movie, but that is more of a central focal point in the book. It gives him a lot more reasoning to be talking and thinking about things and questioning things. Once again, it's not that the movie ignored that, of course not, but aside from a couple dedicated scenes where you see Duke working with his typewriter and once again monologuing about what he's writing, it kind of half ignores it. This is me, of course, just nitpicking about. Speaking of the shots, though, about Duke writing the typewriter, that is the thing where I feel the movie really shines. And like I've already mentioned, it's the creative use of camera work. Interesting shots, good panning of the camera, great music, and once again, of course, top-tier acting. However, I am under obligation to say, now, as crazy and as insane as it may sound to lovers in the movie, when compared to the book, yes, it is actually censored. Incredibly enough, the movie is censored when compared to the book. Alright, so obviously I'm not going to go through every single piece of censorship through the thing. I'm going to choose one that I noticed. Alright, so I did watch the movie a long time ago, but then I read the book. Then I rewatched the movie for the first time like 15 years after I finished reading the book. And so I didn't remember a lot of it. And this is the one scene right here where it really stuck out to me. So you know that scene when the housekeeper lady comes into the room to clean and then Gonzo, his attorney, he's all hooped up on who knows what. He tackles her, thinking that she's going in there to kill them. Well, check this up from the book. I had been asleep when the maid came in that morning. We'd forgotten to hang out the do not disturb sign. So she wandered into the room and startled my attorney, who was kneeling stark naked in the closet, vomiting into his shoes, thinking he was actually in the bathroom, and then suddenly looking up to see a woman with a face like Mickey Rooney staring down at him, unable to speak, trembling with fear and confusion. She was holding that mop like an axe handle, he said later, so I came out of the closet in a kind of running crouch, still vomiting. She was holding that mop like an axe handle, he said later, so I came out of the closet in a kind of running crouch, still vomiting, and hit her right at the knees. It was pure instinct. I thought she was ready to kill me, and then when she screamed, that's when I put the ice bag on her mouth. So yeah, it sure didn't happen like that in the movie, did it? Now, for reasons which are obvious, of course, if they actually followed the book completely the same like that in the movie, the rating would be even higher than it was right now, which they can't do that. But ironically, this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the book. It was great. It was funny. But there's one other thing that this scene kind of bled into I want to talk about. Comparing that scene again from the book to the movie, or we're going to ignore the censorship for a second. After Duke and his attorney start to offer her that fake salary, to spy for them and whatnot.
I'd do just about anything for that.
You know what other people...
In the movie, she just kind of accepts it and moves on. In the book, is a little bit different. You could see her eyes start to twinkle. And it's kind of like once she realized that she was safe and she wasn't scared for her life or anything like that anymore, she immediately started to think of number one, herself. And this is something that they didn't really touch on in the movie too much. But in the book, everybody's a jerk, just in different ways. Everybody's selfish, but just in different ways. Mind you, the movie did kind of do this a little bit at some points, such as when the police officer was trying to check into the resort.
Police chief from Michigan. Look, fella, I have explained to you. I have this postcard, which says that I have a reservation in this hotel.
But the book went into it with much more gusto. So in a scene such as when Duke was pulled over for speeding by that traffic cop is there, he's trying to let him off with a warning, just go rest it out. That whole scene made a lot more sense in the book to me than it did in the film. Not that the scene wasn't entertaining. The scene was great in the movie. It's just, it was more coherent in the book by comparison. It's kind of tough. It's almost like I'm getting flashbacks when I went to the Five Nights at Freddy's movie book versus, and I was kind of complaining about how the book just went into great more detail about everything that was kind of going around Mike. He's home and he sees the delinquency notice on his door. Movie, aerial shot, you see the houses, you see him pull up, park, looks at the delinquency notice, alright, mutters, tell me something I don't know, goes in the house, and scene. In the book, it talks about the neighborhood, why the houses are like the way they are. It talks about him pulling into his driveway, talking about the neighbors themselves, you know, how everything looks, the state of everything, about how he doesn't even want to get out of his car because he just feels so emotionally drained and done with it all. So I'm sure nobody's down there in post right now complaining about that. I brought that up yet again. But that's just how I approached the two different mediums. So for Fear and Loathing Las Vegas, yes, of course it shows you. But does that do the original book justice? From a visual perspective? Well, definitely, yeah. But is that enough? That might be up to you. Duke and Gonzo are perfect from the book to the movie in every way, aside from the censorship, but I'll calm down about that. This is going to be a bit more geared towards the various sub-characters and whatnot. Most of them are done respectively well. Like I did say that a lot of them did lose a bit of an edge though. Like for instance, to bring up the traffic cop again, right? I'm not sure what else they could have done. They could have had him start the monologue himself like Duke does, but I feel that would have broken up the movie. That probably would have broken some of its rules and not as made it as good of a movie. And since they didn't want to do that, the actor had to rely on the script and their acting. Now, I'm sure most of you are saying, well, duh, that's how movies work. And yeah, they do, but hold on. Let's look at the cop who's trying to check into the resort again, right? Duke, who was watching the entire exchange happen, was thinking to himself that he knew that that clerk was purposely making that cop's life as difficult as they possibly could. He knew it was all an act, and this gave the movie the excuse to do the great scene, or cut, whatever you want to call it, of seeing from the clerk's perspective as he's looking and what he's really thinking and saying to this officer.
Of course, I could hear what the clerk was really saying.
Listen, you fuzzy little...
I've been found in my time by a fairly good cross-section of mean-tempered, rural, crazy cops. And now, it's my turn.
I really wish they did this more in the movie. It was such a great little shot, but I guess they were worried maybe they did that too often, it would get old, or the movie would run long. Like I said, it's already almost 2 hours long. But who knows? That kind of thing happens a lot more in the book than it did in the movie. So while it was, of course, told exclusively from Duke's perspective, he did have little tidbits here and there from the other characters, which just made it seem more alive. The movie concentrated more on the city itself and kind of like a broad overlook of everything. While the book tended to go on a bit more of like an individual basis, and it did only pan out to the entire city when it needed to. But once again, all the acting was superb in the movie. There weren't any clunkers or odd scenes or anything like that in it. So if all you do then care about is Duke's personal ramblings and whatnot, then yeah, the movie's got you covered. You're good to go, right? But as usual, we have to go a bit more further than this, right? So in which case we're going to have to move on. So like I've already mentioned, the book isn't even really that long in the grand scheme of things. It was a bit more slower paced compared to the movie. And on top of that, like I also mentioned, it started earlier than the movie did. And it also actually extended a little bit further. And the movie, it ended as soon as Duke left Vegas. Yeah, no, in this one, it not much longer, but just a little bit longer to see what happened when we first got out of the city. The way to explain the stuff that they cut out of the book in order to fit into the movie is, remember that part in Duke's hanging out, it's near the end of the movie, he's got that tape recorder taped to his chest, and he's kind of clicking in, he's listening to different things, he's doing like these shots of things happening with him and his attorney out throughout Vegas in the days. All those scenes that were seen like little blips here and there, those were all full segments inside the book. Those are full parts of the story. You knew everything going on. That whole clip about them buying a monkey, it's all here. So it's great that the movie acknowledged them. Yes, this is part of Duke's story. But the book actually took the time to tell them. Kind of getting away from the story for a second, though, I'm going to kind of speak about what I almost feel like is the elephant in the room when it comes to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Many view Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as a story about drug use and whatnot. And yeah, that is a bit of a superficial way to look at it, but let's just run with that for a second. So if that is the case, then what does sound more interesting to you? Reading about how they react to the drugs or seeing how they react to the drugs? That's a major part of the book. Them going into very intimate details about how they're feeling and the sensations they're experiencing when taking all the different narcotics and whatnot. The example I'm going to bring up is when Duke took that adrenaline stuff, he went and licked it in the movie on his tongue. That was actually a pretty long segment in the book. It went on for a while, him kind of explaining what was happening to his body as everything was going on. In the movie, they had to act it, so Johnny Depp did a great job. He acted the way it was explained in the book, did the best he could, and yeah, it was book accurate, but it almost looked like he was just kind of like jittering out a little bit, like, oh, what's happening and going on exactly there? It was acted perfectly, but as a bit more of a reader myself, I felt I was missing out on it because I'm kind of half guessing what's happening right now. I don't know, but just like seeing them stumbling about, constantly sweating, trying to like work their way through the different highs and drunken states and whatnot. It was, of course, entertaining, but it's almost like you want to look at this thing from like a clinical viewpoint, as in this is exactly what's happening to them, or do you just want to go for a ride, enjoy it? And that, dear friends, is basically the best way I can almost sum up the differences between the book and the movie right there. Do you want to deep dive into Vegas circa 1971? Or do you want to see it, but you're more interested in like a front row seat viewing? Do you want to be the person cutting, dealing out, and cataloging the drugs? Or do you want to be the one taking them? That's the book to the movie. Which do you prefer? So, taking all this into account, then, once as usual, which would I say is better, the book or the movie? Once again, after some thought and whatnot, I've come to the conclusion that the book's better. Alright, first off, please don't hate me. The movie's awesome. Thoroughly enjoyable, but listen, if you like the movie and always thought to yourself, wow, I wish there's a sequel or an extended cut, well then, read the book. That's basically what it is. It's the movie, plus more. More talking, more explanations, more deeper look into Vegas, more about the perceived war on drugs, more hypocrisy, and so on. So if that sounds good to you, read the book. If not, just watch the movie again. It's great. Thanks for watching. The New York office was not familiar with the Vincent Black shadow. They referred me to the Los Angeles bureau, which is actually in Beverly Hills, just a few long blocks from the Polo Lounge. But when I got there, the money woman refused to give me more than $300 in cash. She had no idea who I was, she said, and by that time I was pouring sweat. My blood is too thick for California. I had never been able to properly explain myself in this climate, not with the soaking sweats, wild red eyeballs, and trembling hands. So I took the $300 and left. My attorney was waiting for me in a bar around the corner. This won't make the nut, he said, unless we have unlimited credit. I assured him we would. You Samoans are all the same, I told him. You have no faith in the essential decency of the white man's culture. Jesus, just 1 hour ago we were sitting over there in that stinking Baginio, stone broke and paralyzed for the weekend, when a call comes through from some total stranger in New York, telling me to go to Las Vegas and expenses be damned. And then he sends me over to some office in Beverly Hills where another total stranger gives me $300 raw cash for no reason at all. I tell you, my man, this is the American dream. In action. We'd be fools not to ride this strange torpedo all the way out to the end.